Standing in the driveway after work, I watched my golden child sister slip my entire paycheck into her bag. I'd warned her, "Don't touch my money." She laughed it off and flaunted her new phone. A week later, I did the completely unexpected. I listed her parents' gift to her, our old car, on Craigslist and sold it. I kept every dollar, including what she stole. Now she's stranded alone, phone in hand, while I drive off, feeling justice tastes so sweet. I've always been the family disappointment. Not because I actually did anything wrong, but because I had the misfortune of being born into a family with my sister Patricia. For as long as I can remember, my parents have treated us completely differently. Patricia could literally set the house on fire, and they'd somehow blame me for leaving matches around. Meanwhile, I'd get grounded for breathing too loudly during her piano practice. This isn't some exaggeration or me being dramatic. The favoritism was so obvious that even my friends noticed it whenever they came over. My buddy Jordan once asked me if I was adopted because he couldn't understand why my parents treated me so differently from Patricia. I wasn't adopted, I just wasn't Patricia. The stark contrast in how we were treated became a running joke among my friends, though it was far from funny to me. It was a painful reality I lived with every single day. When we were kids, the differences were annoying, but somewhat manageable. Like when Patricia was 8, she broke this antique vase that had my grandmother's ashes in it. This vase meant everything to my mom. Patricia knew she was in deep shit, so she immediately blamed me. I was literally in my room reading when it happened, but did that matter? Nope. I got grounded for a week while Patricia got her favorite meal that night for being honest. That kind of stuff happened all the time. Birthdays were another sore spot. My parents would forget to plan anything for mine or suddenly have important work commitments that day. But Patricia's birthdays, those were practically national holidays in our house. One year, they rented out an entire skating rink for her and her friends. For my birthday that same year, I got a card with a $20 bill inside that my dad clearly grabbed from his wallet as an afterthought. I remember staring at that $20 bill for hours, not because of its value, but because it represented exactly how much thought they put into celebrating my existence. The real kicker was always about grades. Patricia was naturally smart and got straight A's without much effort. I'm not stupid, but school didn't come as easily to me. I'd study for hours and still end up with B's and occasional C's. Instead of helping me, my parents would just compare me to Patricia. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became their catchphrase. Or my personal favorite, "Maybe if you learned more from your sister, you wouldn't be such a disappointment." Yeah, they actually said that to my face multiple times. Patricia knew exactly what she was doing too. She wasn't just passively benefiting from their favoritism, she actively exploited it. She'd take my stuff without asking, change the TV channel when I was watching something, and never share any of her things with me. If I complained, she'd twist the story when telling our parents, and guess who they believed every single time? She mastered the art of the innocent face, complete with those wide eyes that could convince my parents the sky was green if she claimed it was. One incident really stands out in my memory. When I was 14, my school planned this awesome field trip to a science center 2 hours away. I was super excited because they had this new exhibit about space exploration that I'd been dying to see. I spent the whole week preparing, getting permission slips signed, and saving up my lunch money to buy something from the gift shop. 2 days before the trip, Patricia told our parents that she caught me peeping into the girls' bathroom at school. Complete bullshit. I wasn't even in that part of the building that day. Did my parents call the school to verify? Nope. Did they ask for any evidence? Nope. They just assumed Patricia was telling the truth and I was lying. They banned me from going on the field trip as punishment. I missed out on something I'd been looking forward to for months because of her lie. That was the day I realized my parents would never, ever take my side against Patricia. So I adapted. I started spending as much time as possible at friends' houses. I got a job at 16 so I could pay for my own stuff since I never got the generous allowance Patricia received. I started saving every penny because I knew I needed to get out of that house as soon as I turned 18. For Patricia's 16th birthday, my parents bought her a brand new Honda Civic. Not a used car, a brand new one. Meanwhile, I was saving up for a bicycle. Patricia loved rubbing it in my face too. She'd dangle her keys in front of me and ask if I needed a ride somewhere, then say, "Oops, sorry, I can't waste my fuel on useless people." Real charming, right? By the time I hit 17, I had basically become a ghost in my own home. There were days when my parents didn't say a single word to me, which was actually an improvement over the constant criticism. I kept my head down, worked my part-time job at the local grocery store, and focused on saving money. The grocery store became my sanctuary in a way. My manager, an older woman named Elizabeth, noticed how hard I worked and often gave me extra shifts when I asked. She once commented that I seemed to prefer being at work than at home, and I couldn't even deny it. At least at the store, my efforts were acknowledged and appreciated. Customers would thank me for helping them find items, and coworkers would invite me to join them for lunch breaks. It was the closest thing to normal social interaction I experienced on a regular basis. Fast forward to about a month ago. My 18th birthday was approaching, and I had finally saved up enough money to put down a deposit on a small apartment. Nothing fancy, just a studio in a decent part of town that would get me out of my parents' house. I had about $2,400 saved up, enough for first month's rent, security deposit, and some basic furniture. I kept the cash hidden in my room because I didn't have my own bank account yet. Another thing my parents never helped me with. I was on the phone with a potential landlord one evening, discussing the apartment details. I thought I was alone in the house, but apparently Patricia had come home early from whatever golden child activity she was doing. She must have overheard me talking about the apartment and my savings. After I hung up, she barged into my room without knocking, as usual, and said, "I want to buy a new phone, so do you think you could share some of your money with me?" I was shocked. She knew I'd been working and saving for almost 2 years. She also knew exactly why, to get away from this toxic household. And here she was, asking me to just hand over my hard-earned money so she could get the latest iPhone. "No way," I told her. "This is my money that I worked for. If you want a new phone, get a job like I did." Patricia's face turned red. "Why should I have to work? You're just being selfish." "It's not selfish to keep my own money," I said. "You already get everything you want from Mom and Dad anyway." She stormed out of my room, and I thought that was the end of it. I should have known better. The next day, I came home from work and found Patricia showing off a brand new iPhone 15 to our parents in the living room. They were gushing over how responsible and independent she was for buying it with her own money. My stomach dropped. I ran upstairs to my room and found it completely ransacked. My dresser drawers were pulled out, my mattress was askew, and the box where I kept my savings was empty. She had stolen exactly $1,200, the cost of the new iPhone. I ran back downstairs, furious. "She stole my money," I shouted, pointing at Patricia. "That's my money she used to buy that phone. I was saving it for my apartment." My dad immediately stepped between us. "Calm down," he said, in that condescending tone he always used with me. "Your sister bought this with her own money. She's been saving up." "No, she hasn't. She stole it from my room. Look at my room. She tore it apart looking for my cash." My mom crossed her arms. "Patricia would never lie about something like this. You're just jealous of her accomplishments as usual." I looked at Patricia, who was smirking behind our parents' backs. She knew they would never believe me over her. She had calculated this perfectly. "I'll call the police and report her for theft," I threatened, though I knew it probably wouldn't go anywhere. My dad got in my face then. "You will do no such thing. In fact, you owe your sister an apology for these accusations." I refused to apologize for something I didn't do. I pointed out that they could come upstairs and see my ransacked room as evidence, but they dismissed it, saying I probably made the mess myself to frame Patricia. The mental gymnastics they performed to always make her right and me wrong was truly Olympic level. That night, I lay in bed seething with anger. 2 years of saving, of working extra shifts, of denying myself small pleasures, all so I could escape this house. And Patricia had set me back by half my savings in one day. The worst part was that my parents, as always, took her side without question. But then I remembered something. My parents and Patricia had been planning a weekend trip to visit my aunt in the next state over. They hadn't invited me, of course. They never did. They were leaving on Friday and wouldn't be back until Sunday night. A plan started forming in my mind. Patricia had taken something valuable from me. Maybe it was time I returned the favor. I spent the next few days acting normal. Well, as normal as possible, given the circumstances. I avoided Patricia and my parents as much as I could. When Patricia would walk by me in the hallway and whisper, "I hope your money is safe," I'd just shrug and say, "I hope so too." I could tell it bothered her that I wasn't more upset. Friday finally came. I pretended to leave for work at my usual time, but instead, I just drove around the block and parked where I could see our driveway. I waited until I saw my parents' car pull out, with all 3 of them inside, luggage packed in the trunk. They were heading off on their weekend trip, completely unaware of what I was about to do. I waited another 30 minutes to make sure they hadn't forgotten anything and wouldn't come back. Then I drove home and went straight to Patricia's room. Her spare car key was right where I knew it would be, in her jewelry box. She always kept it there because she was afraid of losing the main one. I grabbed the key and headed to the garage where her precious Honda Civic was parked. The car my parents had bought her while I saved up for a bicycle. The car she used to taunt me about not having. The car that was about to solve my financial problems. I got in Patricia's car and just sat there for a minute. The new car smell was still there, even though she'd had it for months. The leather seats were spotless, because heaven forbid Patricia ever eat in her precious car. The dashboard had 0 dust, because my mom actually cleaned it for her every week. I gripped the steering wheel and took a deep breath. Was I really going to do this? Hell, yes, I was. I started the engine and backed out of the garage. As I drove down our street, I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see my parents' car racing after me. But there was nothing. They were probably already on the highway, laughing and having a great time with their perfect daughter, while I was about to commit what they'd definitely call the ultimate betrayal. I didn't know much about selling cars, but I figured the process couldn't be that complicated. I Googled "sell used car fast cash" at a red light and found a few dealerships that advertised buying cars on the spot. I picked the one with the highest ratings and headed there. The dealership was about 20 minutes away in a commercial part of town. It was one of those places with bright flags and balloons everywhere, trying way too hard to look festive. I parked Patricia's car in their lot and sat there for another minute. This was my last chance to back out. I could drive home, put the car back, and pretend nothing happened. But then I thought about Patricia's smirk when she showed off that iPhone. I thought about the $1,200 she stole from me. I thought about every birthday my parents forgot, every achievement they ignored, every time they called me a disappointment. I got out of the car and walked into the dealership. A salesman named Thomas approached me immediately. He was wearing a polo shirt with the dealership logo and had that fake customer service smile plastered on his face. "Looking to buy today?" he asked. "Actually, I'm looking to sell," I replied, dangling Patricia's keys. His smile changed to something more genuine. Buying cars was probably more profitable for them than selling them. "Let's take a look at what you've got," he said, following me outside. Thomas whistled when he saw Patricia's car. 2023 Honda Civic, excellent condition. "How many miles?" "Just under 8,000, I told him. Patricia barely drove it anywhere except school and the mall. "And you have the title?" he asked. Shit, I hadn't thought about that. The title was probably in my parents' names since they bought it for her. "It's complicated," I said. "The car belongs to my sister, but she stole money from me. I'm just trying to get back what's mine." Thomas's friendly demeanor instantly changed. He took a step back and crossed his arms. "Look, kid, I don't want any part of family drama. We only buy cars with clean titles from the actual owners." I should have expected this. Of course, a legitimate business wouldn't buy a car without proper documentation. I thanked Thomas for his time and got back in Patricia's car, feeling defeated. But I wasn't giving up that easily. I drove to another dealership, but got the same response. Then another, with the same result. By the fourth place, I was getting desperate. It was already afternoon, and I needed to figure this out before my family came back on Sunday. I stopped at a gas station to think and get some food. While I was munching on a sad gas station sandwich, I overheard two guys talking about selling a motorcycle. One of them mentioned someone named Tony who doesn't ask questions and pays cash on the spot. I probably shouldn't have approached random strangers, but at that point, I was out of options. I walked over and asked them about this Tony person. The taller guy looked me up and down suspiciously. "Why are you asking about Tony?" I explained that I had a car I needed to sell quickly, without going into details about why. The guys exchanged looks and then the shorter one wrote down an address on a napkin. "Tell him Riley sent you, but listen, whatever you're into, be careful. Tony's not exactly by the book." I thanked them and headed to the address, which turned out to be an auto repair shop in a not-so-great part of town. The place looked sketchy as hell, with a chain-link fence surrounding the property and several cars in various states of disrepair scattered around the lot. I parked Patricia's car outside and went in. The office was small and dingy, with car parts and paperwork covering every surface. A large man with a beard was sitting behind the desk, talking on the phone in what sounded like Russian. When he hung up, I told him Riley had sent me and that I needed to sell a car quickly. He introduced himself as Tony and followed me outside to look at Patricia's car. Tony walked around the Civic, examining it carefully. He checked under the hood, tested the electronics, and even looked underneath the car. Finally, he stood up and wiped his hands on a rag. "Nice car. Very nice. I give you $7,500 cash." I knew the car was worth at least twice that amount, but I wasn't exactly in a position to negotiate. Plus, $7,500 was more than 6 times the $1,200 Patricia had stolen from me. It would be enough for my apartment deposit, furniture, and several months of rent. "Deal," I said. Tony nodded and went back inside. He returned with a stack of cash and counted out $7,500 in front of me. I handed him the keys, and just like that, Patricia's car was gone. I stuffed the cash into my backpack, feeling both relieved and terrified. I had just sold a car that wasn't technically mine. Was this illegal? Probably. Did I care at that moment? Not really. Patricia had stolen from me first, and I was just getting what I deserved. Tony called me an Uber, surprisingly nice of him, and I headed straight to the apartment I had been looking at. The landlord, an older guy named Mr. Peterson, seemed surprised to see me on a Friday evening, but he showed me the studio apartment again. It was small, but clean, with a kitchenette, a bathroom, and enough space for a bed and a small couch. The building was secure, and the location was perfect. Close enough to my job, but far enough from my parents' house. "I'll take it," I told Mr. Peterson. "I can pay the deposit and first month's rent right now." Mr. Peterson seemed pleased, but also a bit suspicious when I pulled out cash. I made up some story about my bank account being frozen due to suspected fraud, and he eventually accepted it. We signed the lease agreement, and just like that, I had my own place. I still needed furniture, but that could wait. The important thing was that I had somewhere to go that wasn't my parents' house. I went back home one last time to pack my stuff. I didn't have much. Just clothes, my laptop, and a few personal items. Everything fit in 2 duffel bags and a backpack. Before leaving, I wrote a note and left it on my bed. "Patricia stole $1,200 from me. I took what was owed to me. Don't try to find me." Short and to the point. I considered writing more, explaining years of hurt and neglect, but what was the point? They had never listened before. They wouldn't start now. I took one last look at my room, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. Then I walked out, got in my car, well, my old beater that I'd bought with my own money, and drove to my new apartment. The first night in my own place was weird. It was completely empty except for a sleeping bag I'd brought. The silence was both peaceful and eerie after years of living with my family. I ordered pizza, sat on the floor, and just enjoyed the freedom of being alone. The next day, I went to a discount furniture store and bought the basics: a bed, a small table with 2 chairs, and a used couch. I also picked up some kitchen essentials and bathroom supplies. The delivery guys brought everything that afternoon, and by evening, my apartment actually looked livable. I spent Sunday setting up my new place and mentally preparing for the shitstorm that would erupt when my family returned home. I knew they would try to contact me, so I blocked their numbers on my phone. I also deactivated my social media accounts temporarily to avoid the inevitable barrage of messages. Monday morning came, and I went to work as usual. Elizabeth noticed something was different about me and asked if everything was okay. Actually, I moved out of my parents' house, I told her. I got my own place. Elizabeth seemed surprised but happy for me. Good for you, honey. You seem more relaxed already. She was right. Despite the stress of what I'd done, I felt lighter than I had in years. No more walking on eggshells, no more constant comparisons to Patricia, no more feeling like an unwelcome guest in my own home. My phone remained blissfully silent all day. I figured my parents were probably still trying to process what had happened and figure out what to do. Or maybe they were at the police station filing a report. Either way, I wasn't going to worry about it. That peace lasted exactly 3 days. On Thursday afternoon, I was stocking shelves at work when I heard a familiar voice at the customer service desk. Patricia. She was asking one of my co-workers if I was working today. I ducked behind the aisle and texted Elizabeth, who was in the back office. My sister is here. Please don't tell her I'm working. It's complicated. Elizabeth came out and intercepted Patricia before my co-worker could point me out. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I saw Elizabeth shaking her head and Patricia getting increasingly agitated. Finally, Patricia stormed out, and I breathed a sigh of relief. When my shift ended, Elizabeth pulled me aside. Your sister seemed pretty upset. Said you stole something from her and disappeared. Want to talk about it? I gave Elizabeth the abbreviated version of what had happened, that Patricia had stolen my apartment money, so I sold something of hers to recoup my losses and moved out. Elizabeth didn't judge me, which I appreciated. She just nodded and said, family stuff is complicated. Just be careful, okay? And let me know if you need anything. I thanked her and headed home, constantly checking my rearview mirror to make sure Patricia wasn't following me. I made it back to my apartment without incident, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. The next day, I found out how Patricia had tracked me down. Jordan, my friend, who had once asked if I was adopted, texted me, "Dude, your sister came by my house yesterday asking where you were." I didn't tell her anything, but she was pissed. What did you do? I called Jordan and explained the situation. He laughed when I told him I sold Patricia's car. That's hardcore, man, but also kind of awesome. She had it coming. Jordan promised not to tell Patricia anything, but warned me that she had been going around to all my known friends asking about me. It was only a matter of time before someone slipped up or she figured out where I worked. I decided to be proactive. I went to my apartment building's management office and explained that I was dealing with some family issues and didn't want certain people to know where I lived. The manager was understanding and promised not to confirm my residency to anyone asking. A week passed without any further Patricia sightings. I started to relax a bit, thinking maybe my family had given up on finding me. I was wrong. I was coming home from a late shift when I saw a familiar car parked across from my apartment building. My dad's car. They had found me. I drove past without stopping and parked a few blocks away, trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't go home with them waiting for me, but I also couldn't just drive around all night. I ended up calling Jordan, who let me crash on his couch. The next morning, I drove by my apartment again. My dad's car was gone, but I wasn't taking any chances. I waited until I saw a couple of my neighbors leaving the building, then quickly followed them inside before the door closed. I made it to my apartment without seeing any family members, but as soon as I unlocked my door, I knew something was wrong. The door was already unlocked, even though I distinctly remembered locking it the day before. I pushed the door open slowly, half expecting to find my parents sitting on my couch. Instead, I found chaos. My apartment had been ransacked, drawers pulled out, furniture overturned, clothes scattered everywhere. It looked exactly like my room had after Patricia searched it for my money. I immediately checked my hiding spot, a loose vent in the bathroom, where I'd stashed most of the cash from selling Patricia's car. The vent cover was on the floor, and the money was gone. All of it. On my kitchen counter was a note in Patricia's handwriting. Now we're even. I sat down on my overturned couch, trying to process what had happened. Patricia had found my apartment, broken in, and stolen all my money, way more than the $1,200 she claimed I owed her. She had taken close to $5,000. How had she even gotten in? Then I remembered that I had given Jordan a spare key for emergencies. Patricia must have somehow gotten it from him. I called Jordan immediately. "Did you give Patricia my spare key?" I demanded, when he answered. "What? No, but shit. She was here yesterday while I was at work. My roommate let her in because she said she forgot something the last time she visited. Your key was on the hook by the door. Fuck. Man, I'm sorry." I hung up without responding. I wasn't mad at Jordan. This wasn't his fault. Patricia was the one who had manipulated her way into getting my key. I spent the rest of the day cleaning up my apartment and trying to figure out what to do next. I had about $2,000 left in my checking account, money I had deposited before selling Patricia's car. It wasn't much, but it would have to do for now. That evening, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw my mother standing there. I considered not answering, but I knew this confrontation was inevitable. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "What do you want?" I asked. My mom looked tired. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. "Can I come in? We need to talk." I stepped aside reluctantly, and she entered my small apartment. She looked around, taking in my sparse furniture and bare walls. "So, This is where you've been hiding? She said. I haven't been hiding. I moved out. I'm 18. I can do that. My mom sighed and sat down on my couch without being invited. You sold Patricia's car. Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in? Your father wanted to go to the police, but I convinced him to let me talk to you first. Of course, that was her concern. Patricia's car, not the fact that her son had moved out without saying goodbye. Patricia stole $1,200 from me, I said. Money I had been saving for almost 2 years to get away from you people. And now she broke into my apartment and stole another $5,000. So if anyone should be going to the police, it's me. My mom's expression hardened. Don't be ridiculous. Patricia would never steal from you. She said you took her emergency fund to get back at her for buying that phone with her own money. I laughed bitterly. Her own money? She literally tore apart my room looking for my cash. And you still believe her after everything? Watch your tone, my mom warned. We raised you better than this. No, you didn't. You raised Patricia. I raised myself. My mom looked shocked, like this was the first time she'd ever heard me stand up for myself. Maybe it was. I had spent so many years trying to please them, trying to be more like Patricia, that I had never really expressed how I felt. I want Patricia's car back, my mom said after a moment of silence. Or the money you got for it. The money's gone, I told her. Patricia stole it, and I don't have the car anymore. I sold it to pay for this apartment because Patricia stole my original savings. My mom stood up, her face flushed with anger. I don't believe you. Patricia said you were just jealous of her new phone and wanted revenge. She would never break into your apartment. I walked to my bathroom and grabbed the vent cover from the counter. Then how do you explain this? And the fact that my apartment was completely trashed when I got home today, just like my room was after she searched it for my money? My mom stared at the vent cover, then at the obvious signs of the recent mess in my apartment, which I hadn't finished cleaning up. For a brief moment, I saw doubt flicker across her face. Was she finally seeing through Patricia's lies? But then her expression hardened again. You probably did this yourself, to frame her, just like you sold her car, out of spite. I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. Nothing had changed. Nothing would ever change. My parents would always believe Patricia over me, no matter what evidence was right in front of them. I think you should leave, I said quietly. This isn't over, my mom warned as she walked to the door. Your father and I will decide what to do about the car, but there will be consequences for what you've done. After she left, I slumped against the door, feeling drained. I had hoped that maybe, just maybe, moving out would change the dynamic, that my parents would finally see me as an adult capable of making my own decisions. But they still saw me as the troublemaker, the disappointment, the one who was always wrong. I spent the next few days in a state of anxious anticipation, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Would my parents go to the police? Would Patricia try to break in again? I changed my locks and installed a simple security camera facing my door, just in case. A week passed with no contact from my family. I started to think maybe they had given up. I was wrong again. I was at work when Elizabeth called me to the office. She looked concerned. There's a police officer here asking to speak with you. My heart sank. So my parents had gone to the police after all. I followed Elizabeth to the break room where a uniformed officer was waiting. Are you Thomas? He asked. When I nodded, he continued. I'm Officer William. I'd like to ask you a few questions about a vehicle registered to your parents. I took a deep breath and decided to be completely honest. I told Officer William everything. How Patricia had stolen my savings, how I sold her car to recoup my losses, and how she had then broken into my apartment and stolen the money from the car sale. Officer William listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally. When I finished, he looked up from his notepad. That's quite a story. Do you have any proof that your sister stole from you initially? I shook my head. Just my ransacked room. But my parents claimed I did that myself to frame her. And the break-in at your apartment? Did you file a police report? No, I admitted. I didn't think it would matter since it would be my word against hers again. Officer William sighed. Look, I'm going to be straight with you. Your parents have reported the car as stolen. That's a serious offense. But this whole situation sounds like a family dispute that got out of hand. He closed his notepad. Here's what I'm going to do. I'll tell your parents that I spoke with you and that you claim the car was sold to recoup stolen funds. I'll suggest that they handle this as a civil matter rather than a criminal one. But I strongly recommend you find a way to resolve this with your family. I thanked Officer William, relieved that I wasn't being arrested on the spot. After he left, Elizabeth gave me the rest of the day off, saying I looked like I needed some time to think. She wasn't wrong. I drove home in a daze, trying to figure out what to do next. The police were involved now, which made everything more complicated. Even if Officer William was sympathetic, there was no guarantee that my parents wouldn't push for charges. When I got home, I found another surprise waiting for me. Patricia was sitting on the floor outside my apartment door. My first instinct was to turn around and leave, but she had already seen me. I approached cautiously, ready to run if necessary. What do you want? I asked, keeping my distance. Patricia stood up, and I was surprised to see that she looked different. Not smug or angry, but almost nervous. Can we talk? please? Against my better judgment, I unlocked my door and let her in, making sure to keep my keys and phone in my pocket in case I needed to leave, quickly. Patricia looked around my apartment, taking in the minimal furnishings and bare walls. So this is where you've been living, until you broke in and stole my money, yeah, I replied coldly. Patricia sat down on my couch without being invited, just like our mom had done. I didn't steal $5,000 from you, I scoffed. Right, my apartment just ransacked itself and my money just walked away on its own. I'm not saying I didn't break in, Patricia clarified. I did, and I did take some money, but it was only the $1,200 you owed me for my phone, not $5,000. I didn't owe you anything. You stole that money from me first. Patricia had the audacity to look offended. I didn't steal from you. I borrowed it. I was going to pay you back. I stared at her in disbelief. Borrowed? You tore apart my room without asking and took my money without permission? That's stealing, Patricia. Whatever, she said, waving her hand dismissively. The point is, I only took back what was mine. If more money is missing, someone else must have broken in after me. I didn't believe her for a second, but arguing was pointless. Why are you here, Patricia? To gloat? To threaten me with the police? Because they've already contacted me. Patricia's expression changed to something I couldn't quite read. Mom and Dad are really upset, you know. Dad wants to press charges for grand theft auto. Of course he does, I muttered. But I convinced them to hold off, Patricia continued. I told them I talked to you first. I raised an eyebrow, suspicious. Why would you do that? Patricia fidgeted with the hem of her shirt, not meeting my eyes. Because I need your help. Now, that was unexpected. My help? With what? Patricia took a deep breath. I'm in trouble, big trouble, and you're the only one who might understand. I leaned back against my kitchen counter, arms crossed, and stared at Patricia. This had to be some kind of trap. In what universe would the golden child ever need my help? What kind of trouble? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Patricia looked down at her hands. I got kicked out of college. I couldn't help it. I laughed. You? Miss Perfect? How is that even possible? Her face flushed red. It's not funny. I failed most of my classes this semester. They put me on academic probation, and then I kind of got caught cheating on my final exams. That actually surprised me. Patricia had always been naturally smart. She never needed to cheat in high school. I don't get it, I said. You've always been good at school. What happened? Patricia sighed. College is different. It's harder. I couldn't keep up, but I couldn't tell Mom and Dad that. They expect me to be perfect all the time. For the first time in my life, I felt a tiny flicker of sympathy for my sister. I knew exactly what that pressure felt like. So what does this have to do with me? I asked. I haven't told Mom and Dad yet, she admitted. They think I'm still at school. I've been staying with a friend for the past week, but I can't keep that up forever. I shook my head. I still don't see how this involves me. I need a place to stay, Patricia said quietly. Just for a little while, until I figure things out. I stared at her in disbelief. You want to stay here? With me? After you stole my money? Twice? And got the police involved? I told you, I only took back what was mine, she protested. And I'm the one who convinced Mom and Dad not to press charges right away. How generous of you, I said sarcastically. The answer is no, Patricia. Find somewhere else to stay. Patricia's expression hardened. Fine. Then I'll tell Mom and Dad to go ahead with the police charges. Grand theft auto is a felony, you know. And there it was. The real Patricia, using threats and manipulation to get what she wanted. Some things never changed. Get out, I said, moving to open the door. Patricia didn't budge. I'm serious about the charges. Dad already filed a police report. They're just waiting for my go-ahead to pursue it. I felt trapped. If my parents pressed charges, I could end up with a criminal record that would follow me for life. But letting Patricia stay with me seemed like inviting a snake into my bed. 2 weeks, I finally said. You can stay for 2 weeks, but you have to give me back the rest of my money. Patricia's face remained neutral. I told you, I only took $1,200. If more is missing, it wasn't me. I didn't believe her, but arguing was pointless. Fine, 2 weeks, and you sleep on the couch, and you pay for your own food. Patricia nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. Deal. I immediately regretted my decision. But what choice did I have? I couldn't risk a felony charge on my record. I'll get my stuff from my friend's place, Patricia said, standing up. I'll be back tonight. After she left, I called Jordan to vent. Dude, I think I just made a huge mistake. Jordan agreed. Living with the person who's been making your life hell? Yeah, that's not gonna end well. I don't have a choice, I explained. It's either this or risk going to jail. Just be careful, Jordan warned. And maybe get a lock for your bedroom door. That was actually good advice. I headed to the hardware store and bought a deadbolt for my bedroom. I installed it that afternoon before Patricia returned. Around 8 p.m., Patricia showed up with 2 large suitcases and a backpack. I showed her the couch and the bathroom, laid out some basic ground rules, and then retreated to my bedroom, locking the new deadbolt behind me. Living with Patricia was exactly as awful as I expected. She took hour-long showers, left her stuff everywhere, and acted like she was doing me a favor by being there. She also kept borrowing my food, despite our agreement that she'd buy her own. After 3 days, I came home from work to find Patricia sitting on the couch with a guy I'd never seen before. They were drinking my beer and watching my TV. Who's this? I asked, dropping my keys loudly on the counter. This is Brad, Patricia said casually. Brad, this is my brother I told you about. Brad gave me a nod but didn't get up. He looked like every douche Patricia had ever dated. Expensive clothes, perfect hair, and an expression that said he thought he was better than everyone else. Can I talk to you? I said to Patricia, motioning toward my bedroom. Once inside with the door closed, I let her have it. You can't just invite people over without asking me first. This is my apartment, Patricia rolled her eyes. It's not a big deal. Brad's just hanging out. That's not the point, I insisted. This is my space. You're a guest here, and not even a welcome one. Fine, Patricia huffed. I'll tell him to leave. When we came back out, Brad was going through my fridge. He had already opened another one of my beers. Brad needs to leave, I said firmly. Brad looked at Patricia, who nodded reluctantly. Yeah, we should probably go somewhere else. We? I echoed. Patricia, it's almost 11. Where are you going? Out, she said vaguely, grabbing her purse. Don't wait up. They left before I could protest further. I spent the rest of the evening seething and wondering if Patricia was deliberately trying to push my buttons or if she was genuinely this inconsiderate. The next morning, I woke up to find Patricia hadn't come home. I wasn't particularly worried. She was an adult and could do what she wanted, but it was annoying that she hadn't bothered to text me. She finally showed up around noon, looking hungover and irritable. I was about to lecture her when my phone rang. It was my mom. Thomas, she said when I answered, her voice tense. We need to talk about the car situation. Your father and I have been patient, but this has gone on long enough. I glanced at Patricia, who was watching me with an unreadable expression. What do you want me to do? I don't have the car anymore, and I don't have the money either. Then you need to find a way to pay us back, my mom insisted. That car was worth at least $25,000. I laughed bitterly. I don't have that kind of money. I barely make enough to cover rent and food. This isn't a joke, Thomas. Your father is talking about taking you to court if necessary. I felt a surge of anger. Go ahead. And while you're at it, ask Patricia about getting kicked out of college for cheating. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, what are you talking about? I looked directly at Patricia as I spoke. Your perfect daughter got kicked out of college for failing her classes and cheating on exams. She's been staying with me for the past few days because she was too afraid to tell you. Patricia's face went pale. She lunged for the phone, but I stepped back, keeping it out of her reach. That's not true, my mom said, but she sounded uncertain. Patricia is doing well in school. We just talked to her last week. Ask her yourself, I suggested. But make sure you're sitting down for that conversation. I hung up before my mom could respond. Patricia was staring at me with a mixture of shock and fury. What the hell? She screamed. You had no right to tell them that, and you had no right to steal my money or threaten me with police charges. I shot back. Welcome to consequences, Patricia. It's something you should have experienced years ago. Patricia's phone started ringing. Our mom, no doubt. Patricia ignored it, still glaring at me. I'm leaving, she announced, grabbing her purse. I can't believe I thought staying with you was a good idea. Where are you going to go? I asked. Back to Mom and Dad? Good luck explaining the college situation. Patricia's phone rang again. She silenced it without looking. I hate you, she said, her voice shaking. You've ruined everything. No, Patricia. You ruined everything yourself. I'm just refusing to be your scapegoat anymore. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and guilt. I hadn't planned to expose Patricia's secret like that, but I couldn't say I regretted it. My phone rang again, my dad this time. I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't in the mood for another lecture. The next few days were blissfully Patricia-free. She didn't come back to my apartment and I didn't reach out to her. My parents called several times, but I ignored them. I wasn't ready to deal with the fallout yet. On Friday evening, someone knocked on my door. I checked the peephole, half expecting to see Patricia or my parents. Instead, it was Officer William. My stomach dropped. I opened the door reluctantly. Officer William, what can I do for you? May I come in? He asked. His expression was serious, which didn't bode well. I stepped aside to let him in, mentally preparing myself for the worst. Had my parents decided to press charges after all? Officer William sat on my couch and took out his notepad. I spoke with your parents again yesterday. They mentioned some new information about your sister being expelled from college. I nodded cautiously. That's true. She was staying here for a few days, but left after I told our parents about the expulsion. Your parents also mentioned that they've been trying to contact your sister, but she's not answering her phone. They're concerned. I shrugged. Patricia's an adult. She's probably staying with friends and avoiding our parents because she doesn't want to face them. Officer William nodded thoughtfully. That's what I figured too. But there's something else. Your parents finally spoke with your sister's university and confirmed that she was indeed expelled for academic dishonesty. Okay, I said slowly, not sure where this was going. They also discovered that your sister had taken out several credit cards in your father's name. She's racked up over $30,000 in debt. That caught me off guard. What? How is that possible? Identity theft is unfortunately common even within families, Officer William explained. Your parents are understandably upset, but they've decided not to press charges against either of you. They asked me to let you know. I sat down, trying to process this information. Patricia had stolen from our parents too? That explained how she'd been living the high life at college, despite supposedly being on a strict budget. There's one more thing, Officer William added. Your sister's boyfriend, Brad, I believe, was arrested last night for possession with intent to distribute. Your sister wasn't with him at the time, but his apartment was full of stolen goods, including what appears to be about $8,000 in cash, hidden in a backpack with some of your sister's belongings. My eyes widened. That's my money. The money from selling her car, minus what I spent on apartment stuff. Officer William nodded. That's what we suspected. We'll need you to come down to the station to identify the backpack and make a statement. After Officer William left, I sat on my couch in shock. So Brad had been the one who took the rest of my money, probably while he was hanging out at my apartment, and Patricia had been committing credit card fraud against our parents. The golden child had fallen far from grace. The next day, I went to the police station and identified my money. Since I couldn't prove it was mine, I had no receipt from selling the car, obviously. They couldn't officially return it to me yet, but Officer William seemed confident that it would eventually make its way back to me. As I was leaving the station, I ran into my parents in the parking lot. They looked tired and older somehow, like they'd aged years in just a few days. "Thomas," my dad said, his voice lacking its usual authoritative tone. "We were just coming to talk to the officer about Patricia's situation." I nodded awkwardly, not sure what to say. We stood there in uncomfortable silence for a moment. "We owe you an apology," my mom finally said. "We should have believed you about the money Patricia took." I was so surprised that I couldn't respond immediately. In 18 years, I couldn't remember my parents ever apologizing to me for anything. "It's okay," I said eventually, though it wasn't really okay at all. "No, it's not," my dad said firmly. "We've been unfair to you for a long time. We're just beginning to realize how much." Another awkward silence fell between us. Years of hurt and resentment couldn't be erased with one apology in a police station parking lot. "Have you heard from Patricia?" I asked, changing the subject. My parents exchanged glances. "No," my mom admitted. "We're worried about her." I nodded but didn't offer any reassurance. I wasn't worried about Patricia. She had always landed on her feet, usually at someone else's expense. Would you like to come over for dinner sometime?" my mom asked hesitantly. "Maybe this Sunday?" Part of me wanted to refuse, to hold on to my anger and hurt, but another part recognized that this was the first genuine olive branch my parents had ever extended to me. "Maybe," I said. "I'll think about it." That was 2 weeks ago. I did end up going to dinner at my parents' house. It was awkward and tense, but it was a start. We're trying to build a new relationship, one based on mutual respect rather than comparison and criticism. It's not easy, and there are moments when old patterns emerge, but we're making progress. Patricia eventually turned up at our parents' house, full of excuses and explanations. She claimed Brad had stolen my money without her knowledge, and that the credit cards were a misunderstanding. My parents didn't buy it this time. They cut her off financially and told her she needed to get a job and pay back the credit card debt. As for me, I got most of my money back after Brad took a plea deal and admitted to stealing it. I used it to buy some decent furniture for my apartment and put the rest in a savings account, one that Patricia doesn't know about. I still see my sister occasionally at family dinners, but our relationship has changed. She's not the golden child anymore, and I'm not the scapegoat. We're just two flawed people trying to figure out our places in the world. Sometimes I think about that car, the symbol of everything that was wrong with our family dynamic. In a weird way, selling it was the best thing I ever did. Not because of the money, but because it forced all of us to confront the truth about ourselves and each other. I don't regret what I did, not for a second.